Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge of the UTS horizon, staring at the impossible wall of energy that blocked their path. For 15 years, humanity had traveled through space using faster-than-light engines. They had visited dozens of star systems, built colonies on distant worlds, and searched everywhere for signs of intelligent life. They had found nothing but empty planets and silent stars. Until now. The barrier stretched across space like an invisible ocean. It shimmered with colors that had no names, pulsing with power that made the ship's instruments scream warnings. When they tried to pass through it, the horizon was pushed back gently but firmly, like a parent stopping a child from touching fire. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Hyunwoo from his station. His fingers moved quickly across the controls. "It's not in any language we know, but the patterns are mathematical." Dr. Minji rushed to her workstation, her eyes bright with excitement. She had spent her entire career studying how to communicate with alien species, even though they had never found any. Now her moment had finally arrived. She worked for 3 hours translating the mathematical sequences into meaning. When she finished, her hands were shaking. "What does it say?" Daehyun asked. Minji looked up at him and he saw fear in her eyes. "It says we're in quarantine. Species 7834, that's us. That's humanity. They've been watching us, Captain, for centuries, and they've decided we're not ready to meet them." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ambassador Ji-young stepped forward, her diplomatic training barely hiding her shock. "Not ready? What does that mean?" "There's more," Minji continued. "They call themselves the Galactic Concordat. 47 different alien species all working together. They've built an entire civilization out here while we thought we were alone, and they've been keeping us locked inside our own little corner of space." Daehyun felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger would not help them now. Why would they hide from us?" Hyunwoo pulled up the rest of the translated message on the main screen. Everyone on the bridge read it in silence. The Concordat's reasons were listed like a report card. Humanity was too violent, too divided, too young. Their technology was primitive despite their FTL drives. Their threat level was listed as moderate, which meant the aliens saw them as potentially dangerous. "They've been studying us like we're animals in a zoo," Ji-young said quietly. Her voice was tight with controlled fury. "All this time we thought we were explorers discovering an empty universe. But we were prisoners who didn't know we were in a cage." A new message appeared on the screen. This one was different. It contained an offer. "Someone wants to talk to us," Minji said. She opened the communication channel, and the bridge filled with light. When the light faded, a holographic image stood before them. It was a being unlike anything they had imagined. Reptilian scales covered its body, and its eyes held intelligence that felt ancient and cold. "I am Overseer Velos of the Kirin Empire," the alien said. Its voice was translated instantly into Korean, though the original sounds remained underneath like a ghost. "I speak for the Concordat. You have discovered our barrier. This was inevitable. We have been waiting for this moment." "You had no right to imprison us," Daehyun said, keeping his voice level. "We had every right," Velos replied. "The galaxy is not a safe place for children playing with fire. Your species has barely stopped killing each other. You have nuclear weapons pointed at your own cities. You poison your own planet while fighting over imaginary lines drawn on maps. Should we invite such chaos into our home?" Ji-young stepped forward. "We've been at peace for 70 years. We've united under the Terran Coalition. 70 years, Velos interrupted, is less than a single heartbeat in galactic time. We have species in the Concordat who have maintained peace for 10,000 years. Your unity is an infant taking its first steps. Impressive for an infant perhaps, but not ready to walk among giants." "Then why are you talking to us?" Hyunwoo asked. "If you think we're so primitive, why not just keep ignoring us?" For the first time, something like emotion crossed Velos's face. It might have been respect. "Because you built FTL drives using a method we have never seen before. Because you found this barrier when it should have been invisible to your sensors for another century. Because you are advancing faster than our models predicted. So we offer you a choice." The hologram changed, showing images of a massive structure floating in space. It looked like a solar system that had been built instead of born. Artificial planets orbited an artificial sun, connected by streams of light and energy. "These are the testing grounds," Velos explained. "Every species that wishes to join the Concordat must pass the trials of ascension. These trials test everything that matters: unity, wisdom, capability, Adaptability. Most species fail. Many die trying. Those who pass earn their place among the stars. Those who fail are sent home and given time to grow. And if we refuse, Daehyun asked, then you return to Earth and the barrier remains. You will live your lives inside your quarantine zone. And your children's children will grow old wondering what lies beyond the wall. We will check on you again in 1,000 years. Perhaps then you will be ready. The bridge was silent. Every person there understood the weight of this moment. This decision would change humanity's future forever. They could go home, report what they had found, and let Earth's leaders debate for years about what to do. Or they could act now, take the risk, and maybe open the galaxy for their entire species. Daehyun looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also hope. They had not come all this way to turn back at the first challenge. We accept, he said. We'll take your trials. Velos nodded slowly. I expected nothing less. Humans are nothing if not bold. Whether that boldness is courage or foolishness, the trials will reveal. Prepare yourselves. Once you pass through this barrier, there is no turning back until the trials are complete. Win or lose, live or die, you will see them through to the end. The hologram faded. The barrier in front of them began to open, revealing a gateway to the other side. Through it, they could see space that looked different somehow. Richer, fuller, alive with light from civilizations beyond counting. The horizon moved forward slowly, crossing from everything they had known into everything they had dreamed of. Behind them, the barrier closed like a door shutting. There was no going back now. Welcome, Velos's voice echoed through the ship. To the Galactic Concordat. Try not to die too quickly. The testing grounds were nothing like Daehyun had imagined. The entire system was artificial, built by technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. Planets hung in impossible orbits connected by bridges of solid light. Structures the size of moons floated in the darkness, their purposes unknown and probably unknowable. The horizon docked at a station that made Earth's largest space habitats look like toys. Velos met them at the airlock, accompanied by two guards that looked like they were made of living crystal. The overseer's reptilian face showed something that might have been amusement. The first trial begins in 6 hours, Velos said. I will give you this advice freely because the Concordat requires that I am fair. Every species approaches the trials with their greatest strength. The Kirans used our tactical superiority. The Vroth used pure logic. The Eldari used their ancient wisdom. All of them passed eventually, but it took years. Some species never passed at all. Use what makes humanity special, if you can figure out what that is. After Velos left, the crew gathered in the Horizon's briefing room. Ambassador Ji-young looked tired already, and they had not even started yet. What is our greatest strength? We are not the strongest or the smartest. We don't have ancient wisdom or superior technology. We adapt, Hyunwoo said. We're good at changing when we need to. We're stubborn, added Kwan, the young engineer who had barely spoken since they arrived. When we decide to do something, we don't give up. Dr. Minji shook her head. Those are good qualities, but every species has them. There has to be something else. Something the aliens don't expect. Before anyone could answer, an alarm sounded. The first trial was beginning early. They were transported instantly to a new location. One moment they stood on the horizon, the next they were inside a massive maze. The walls were made of something that looked like liquid metal, constantly shifting and changing. The ceiling was so high above them it disappeared into darkness. Welcome to the Echo Maze, Velos's voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere. This trial has broken 137 species. The rules are simple. Reach the center. Do it before you run out of air. Do it before you go insane. Do it before you kill each other. Most species fail at that last part. The communication channel cut off, leaving them in silence. Hana, the combat specialist, immediately started scanning the walls with her equipment. I'm not getting any readings. This material doesn't respond to any of our sensors. We need to split up and map the maze, Hyunwoo suggested. Standard search protocol. They tried that first. It was a disaster. The moment they separated, the walls began to shift faster. Corridors closed behind them. New paths opened that led nowhere. Within an hour, 2 team members were lost and everyone was close to panic. Daehyun called everyone back together using the emergency beacons in their suits. When they reunited, sweating and scared, they found something strange. The walls near them had stopped moving. It responds to us, Minji said, her eyes wide. Not to our technology. To us. What do you mean? Ji-young asked. Watch. Minji walked toward a wall, feeling angry about being trapped. The wall shifted away from her, creating a new corridor. But when she tried to follow it, the corridor closed. It's not about where we go. It's about how we feel. Quan sat down on the floor and the crew thought he had given up. But then he started laughing. It's a test of emotional intelligence. Every other species probably tried to map it or fight through it or use technology to hack it. But the maze doesn't care about any of that. It wants to know if we can work together, if we can trust each other. That's insane, Hana said. How do you fight something that responds to feelings? You don't fight it, Daehyun realized. You feel together. It sounded ridiculous. Humans were not telepathic. They could not read each other's minds or merge their emotions into one. But they could do something else. They could empathize. They could understand each other. Daehyun made everyone sit in a circle. We're going to do something that probably sounds stupid. We're going to talk about what we're feeling. Everything, fear, anger, hope, whatever. And we're going to listen to each other. Really listen. For the next hour, they talked. Hana admitted she was terrified of failing her crew. Hyunwoo confessed he felt like an imposter, not smart enough for this mission. Ji-young revealed that she had left her family behind on Earth and might never see them again. Quan cried when he talked about his sister who had died in a mining accident, and how he blamed himself for not being there. Minji talked about her loneliness, how she had spent her whole life preparing to meet aliens and, now that she had, she realized she did not know how to connect with her own species. Daehyun shared his fear that he would make the wrong decision and doom humanity's chances forever. As they spoke and listened, something changed. The walls around them began to glow softly. The harsh metal liquid texture became warmer, almost welcoming. It's working, Minji whispered. The maze is responding to our emotional synchronization. They stood up together, and this time they did not try to map the maze or find the clever solution. They simply walked, staying close to each other, keeping their minds focused on unity and trust. When someone felt doubt, the others supported them. When someone felt fear, the group surrounded them with courage. The walls opened before them like flowers blooming. Corridors appeared that led exactly where they needed to go. The maze was no longer fighting them. It was helping them. They reached the center in 11 days. When they arrived, they found Velos waiting for them, and for the first time, the alien looked genuinely shocked. Impossible, Velos said. The fastest any species has completed the Echo Maze is 1 year and 43 days. The Eldari hold that record, and they are masters of mental discipline. How did you do this? Daehyun smiled, tired but proud. You said to use what makes us special. We used empathy. We used our ability to feel what others feel and care about it. You thought that was a weakness, didn't you? Velos did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was different, quieter. The Concordat values logic and strength. Emotional connection is seen as primitive, a relic of evolution that advanced species should overcome. But you turned it into a tool. Perhaps the Concordat has forgotten something important. Perhaps, Ji-young said carefully. That's why you need us. Before Velos could respond, another alien appeared. This one was taller and thinner, with skin that looked like polished stone. Its eyes glowed with cold intelligence. I am Counselor Thane of the Vroth Collective, it said. I have been watching your trial with interest. And with concern. Concern? Daehyun asked. You do not follow the expected patterns, Thane replied. This makes you unpredictable. Unpredictability is dangerous in a galaxy that has maintained peace through order and structure. I have called for a council session. We will discuss whether your trials should continue or be terminated immediately. You can't do that, Ji-young protested. We passed the first trial fairly. And that is precisely the problem, Thane said. You passed it too easily using methods that should not work. This suggests either the trial is flawed or you are. Either way, the Concordat must decide if humanity's chaos is worth the risk. The alien disappeared, leaving them with Velos, who suddenly looked old and tired. I warned you that most species fail, Velos said quietly. I did not warn you that success might be worse. Part 5. The New Order. 6 months after the battle, the Galactic Council convened once more. Apex 7 Station had been repaired, though scars from the fighting still marked its outer hull. Those scars were left deliberately, a reminder of how close the galaxy had come to annihilation. Hyejin walked through corridors that felt different now. Council species that had once barely acknowledged humanity's existence now stepped aside respectfully. Some offered gestures that translated as thanks. Others simply watched her pass with expressions that mixed gratitude with lingering uncertainty. The council chamber had changed too. New seats had been added to replace those lost in the war. Memorial plaques honored the fallen human and alien names side by side. And at the center of the chamber, where once there had been only the council speaker's platform, now stood something new. A circular table where representatives could meet as equals. Velrothi was still council speaker, but the ancient crystalline being looked renewed somehow. The cracks in its structure had been repaired. Its light shone brighter. The Galactic Council recognizes Hyejin, ambassador of United Humanity. Velrothi's voice resonated through the chamber. We gather today to address a question that should have been answered differently 50 years ago. Will humanity join the Galactic Council? Hyejin noticed that Velrothi had not said apply to join. The wording was subtle but significant. Before she could respond, another figure entered the chamber. Bora was Earth's new chancellor, elected just 3 months earlier. She was young for such a position, barely 40 years old. But the war had changed perspectives on what mattered. Age meant less than wisdom, and Bora had proven herself wise beyond her years during the crisis. Honored council members, Bora said, taking her place beside Hyejin. Before we discuss humanity's membership, we must discuss something more fundamental. The galaxy has changed. The war proved that the old ways of doing things are not sufficient. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some council members looked offended. Others seemed curious. Explain, Velrothi said. Bora activated a holographic display. Images appeared of council species working alongside humans. Battle footage showed mixed crews operating ships together. Scientists from a dozen worlds collaborated on new technologies. Medical teams combined their knowledge to save lives. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council maintained order through conformity, Bora said. Every species was expected to follow the same rules, use the same tactics, think the same way. It created stability, but it also created stagnation. When the Vexcath returned, that conformity nearly destroyed you. And humanity's chaos saved us? A council member challenged, though without the hostility that would have been present years ago. Not chaos, Bora corrected gently. Diversity. Humanity brought different ways of thinking, different approaches to problems, different solutions that the council had never considered because you had all become too similar to each other. Sangwoo stepped forward. The admiral had become a hero to many species. His tactics were now studied in military academies across the galaxy. During the war, we learned something important. Human methods worked not because they were superior, but because they were different. When we combined human creativity with council discipline, when we mixed your experience with our innovation, we became stronger than either could be alone. An elderly council member from a species known for their historical knowledge spoke up. You suggest that the council has become too uniform, but our unity is what has prevented galactic wars for millennia. Your unity prevented conflict by eliminating difference, Hyejin said. But difference is not the enemy. Enforced conformity breeds weakness. True strength comes from diversity working toward common goals. The debate continued for hours. Some council members clung to old traditions. They argued that the human approach was dangerous, that allowing too much variation would lead to chaos and conflict. Others, particularly those whose worlds had been saved by human tactics, advocated for change. Finally, Velrothi called for order. The council must vote on 2 questions. First, should humanity be offered membership? Second, should the council's structure be reformed to encourage diversity rather than conformity? The voting took less time than anyone expected. When the results appeared, even Hyejin was surprised. On the question of humanity's membership, Velrothi announced, 801 in favor, 31 against, 15 abstentions. Humanity is hereby welcomed into the Galactic Council with full rights and privileges. The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had once rejected humanity now celebrated their acceptance. But Velrothi raised a crystalline limb for silence. On the question of structural reform, the vote is 647 in favor, 200 against, with 140 abstentions. The Galactic Council will be restructured to encourage innovation and diversity, while maintaining our commitment to peace and cooperation. More applause followed, though this time mixed with some uncertain voices. Change was frightening, even when it was necessary. Velrathi approached Bora and Hyejin. The Council offers humanity a permanent seat on the High Command. Your people have earned the right to help guide galactic affairs. Bora bowed respectfully. We are honored, but I would like to propose something different. Instead of permanent seats that can become entrenched, what if leadership rotated among member species? Each species brings unique strengths. All should have the opportunity to guide the Council. The suggestion was radical. For 10,000 years, the same ancient species had dominated Council leadership. Now a human was proposing to share that power more broadly. Velrathi's form flickered with what might have been surprise or respect. You would give up power before you have even received it? We would share power, Bora corrected, because we learned something during our 50 years of isolation. No one species has all the answers, but together we might find solutions none of us could achieve alone. The proposal was put to an immediate vote and passed. The old council structure, with its permanent leadership and rigid hierarchy, was dismantled. In its place came something more fluid, a rotating leadership that would give every species a voice, committees that mixed different species together rather than keeping them separate, a commitment to innovation alongside stability. In the weeks that followed, humanity began sharing technologies that had been developed during the quarantine. Zero-point energy reactors were provided freely to any species that wanted them. The quantum communication network was expanded across the galaxy. Medical advances that extended human lifespans were adapted for alien biologies. Some council members had worried that humanity would seek revenge for the rejection or would try to dominate through superior technology. Instead, humans offered everything as gifts. The message was clear. Humanity did not want to rule the galaxy. They wanted to improve it. A year after the vote, the first class graduated from the new Galactic Human Academy. The school was established on a neutral world, bringing together students from hundreds of species. They learned not just science and history, but how to think differently, how to approach problems from multiple angles, how to value diversity as a strength. Hyejin attended the graduation ceremony. She was older now, her hair showing the first streaks of gray despite medical advances that could prevent it. She chose to age naturally, she said, because age represented experience. She watched thousands of students take their oaths. Humans stood beside crystalline beings, insectoid species, aquatic creatures in mobile tanks and forms of life that defied easy description. They were not becoming the same. They were learning to be different together. An alien child approached her after the ceremony. The child species had been one of those that voted against humanity 50 years ago. Are you the human ambassador? The one who saved us? Hyejin knelt down to the child's level. I am just someone who refused to give up. Many people saved the galaxy. Humans and aliens together. My teacher says humans changed everything, the child said. Is that true? Hyejin thought about her grandfather, Taiwan, who had walked away from rejection with dignity and determination. She thought about all the humans who had worked for 50 years to prove themselves. She thought about the aliens who had fought beside humans and died to save them. We did not change everything alone, she said finally. We showed the galaxy that change was possible. That is different. Change requires everyone working together. That night, Hyejin stood on the observation deck where her grandfather had stood so long ago. She looked out at the stars, at the hundreds of ships from dozens of species moving through space, trade vessels and exploration ships, science stations and cultural exchange programs. A galaxy that was finally truly united not through conformity, but through shared purpose. Her granddaughter found her there. The girl was just 12 years old, but already showing signs of the intelligence and determination that ran in their family. Grandmother, I have been reading about the rejection, about how they told us we were not ready. That is true, Hyejin confirmed. Were they right? Hyejin smiled. They were right that we were not ready, but they were wrong about what we were not ready for. We were not ready to be like them, to accept their limitations. The final trial was different from everything that came before. There were no weapons, no mazes, no battles to fight. Instead, Daehyun and his command team were brought to a place called the Archive. It was a building that seemed small from outside, but endless within. The walls were lined with crystals that glowed with stored information. Each crystal contained the complete history of a species in the Concordat. Every triumph, every failure, every secret they wished they could forget. Talus met them at the entrance. The ancient Eldari looked tired, as if the weight of 10,000 years pressed down on her shoulders. She no longer glowed as brightly as she had before. "This is the true test," Talus explained. "Not of strength or cleverness, but of character. You must access the archive and solve the great paradox. It is a question that has troubled the Concordat since its founding. How do we balance individual freedom with collective security? How do we let species govern themselves while preventing them from harming others? How do we maintain peace without becoming tyrants?" "That's a philosophical question," Ji-Young said. "Not a practical one." "All practical problems start with philosophy," Talus replied. "But there is a cost to accessing the archive. To understand the paradox, you must first understand the Concordat. And that means learning the truth about us. Most species who see that truth either reject membership or lose their idealism entirely. They join us, but they become cynical and broken. This is the real trial. Can you face the darkness and still choose to build something better?" Director Eunji had been called from Earth to witness this final test. She stood beside Daehyun now, representing humanity's leadership. "Show us," she said quietly. "We've come this far. We won't turn back because the truth is ugly." The archive opened to them like a flower made of light and memory. They walked through the history of the Concordat, and what they found broke their hearts. The Concordat was not a partnership of equals. It was a carefully controlled hierarchy, where the oldest species maintained power by managing everyone else. New species were not welcomed as partners but integrated as assets. Their resources were catalogued, their populations analyzed, their potential threats calculated and neutralized. The quarantine around humanity was not about protection or readiness. It was about timing. The Concordat had been studying Earth for centuries, waiting until humanity developed specific technologies that would make them useful. The trials themselves were not really about testing worthiness. They were about psychological profiling, finding species who would accept the Concordat's authority without too much resistance. Peace in the galaxy was maintained not through cooperation, but through manipulation. Species were played against each other to prevent any one group from becoming strong enough to challenge the old powers. Wars were sometimes allowed to happen because they kept populations focused on survival rather than questioning the system. Ji-Young sat down on the floor of the archive, her face pale. "It's all a lie. Everything they told us about unity and cooperation. They're just another empire, but they're smart enough to hide it." Minji was crying silently, her dreams of a peaceful galactic community shattered. Even Hyunwoo, who was usually calm and tactical, looked shaken, but Daehyun was thinking. He walked deeper into the archive, reading more. He found something the others had missed in their shock and disappointment. The Concordat had not always been this way. In the beginning, 10,000 years ago, it had been exactly what it claimed to be. A true federation of equals built on trust and mutual respect. But over time, fear had crept in. Fear of conflict, fear of chaos, fear of losing control. The original founders had made small compromises to maintain peace. Those compromises had grown into policies. The policies had hardened into unbreakable laws. And slowly the dream had turned into something else. "They forgot," Daehyun said out loud. "They forgot what they were trying to build. They became so focused on preventing problems that they stopped believing in the solution." Talus appeared beside him, moving silently despite her age. "You understand. Good. Now comes the real question. The great paradox is not really about balancing freedom and security. It is about whether such balance is even possible. Every species that has sat where you sit now has concluded that it is not. That some level of control is necessary. That freedom is too dangerous to be truly free. They join us because they believe there is no better option, but they hate us for it and they hate themselves." "There is a better option," Daehyun said. He was not sure where the words were coming from, but they felt true. "You need to rebuild the Concordat the way it was supposed to be." "We have tried," Talus said sadly. "For thousands of years, reformers have risen and fallen. The system is too entrenched. The old powers will not surrender their control. Change is impossible." "Then maybe you need someone from outside the system," Director Eunji said. She had been listening quietly, but now she stepped forward with the authority of someone who represented an entire world. "You need someone who doesn't have a stake in maintaining the current order. Someone who has nothing to lose by challenging it." "You mean humanity," Talus said. I mean anyone who still believes the original dream was worth fighting for, Yunji replied. You said most species become cynical after seeing the truth. But we're not cynical. We're angry, and anger can be useful if it's directed at fixing things rather than breaking them. Minji wiped her tears and stood up. We solved the paradox by admitting that it can't be solved from within the current system. The system itself is the problem. You need to tear it down and build something new. That would require revolution, Talus said. War, chaos, millions would die. Or, Daehyun said carefully, it requires evolution. Slow change from within, building alliances with species who want reform, showing them that another way is possible, using humanity's membership not to join the system but to change it. He pulled up a holographic interface and began sketching ideas. A new kind of concordate, where species maintained true sovereignty, where decisions were made democratically rather than by the oldest powers, where transparency replaced manipulation, where trust was built through genuine cooperation rather than forced through control. It was idealistic. It was probably impossible, but as he spoke, something changed in the archive. The crystals around them began to glow brighter. Data started flowing in patterns that had been locked for thousands of years. Talus stared in wonder. The archive is responding to you. It has not done this since the Concordate's founding. It recognizes your proposal as aligned with the original vision. Then the original vision is not dead, Ji-young said. It's been sleeping, waiting for someone to wake it up. The archive opened one final chamber, one that even Talus had never seen. Inside was a crystal larger than all the others, pulsing with golden light. When they touched it, they understood. This crystal contained the original charter of the Concordate, written by its founders. The true vision of what it was meant to be. It was beautiful and terrifying in its simplicity. Real freedom, real cooperation, real trust. No safety nets, no controls, no manipulation. Just species working together because they chose to, not because they were forced to. This is the answer to the paradox. Daehyun breathed. The founders knew it all along. True freedom is dangerous. But the danger is the point. Only by risking chaos do we prove we're capable of order. Only by trusting each other do we earn trust. They forgot this. They chose safety over freedom, and in doing so, they created exactly the kind of tyranny they were trying to prevent. Talus knelt before the crystal, and for the first time, the ancient alien looked young. You have passed the final trial, not because you found a clever solution, but because you reminded us of what we lost. The Council will have to acknowledge this. You have accessed the Founder's crystal. Its judgment supersedes all our laws. What happens now? Director Yunji asked. Now, Talus said, you face the most dangerous trial of all. You must convince the Concordate to change, and Counselor Thane will do everything in his power to stop you, even if it means war. Back on the horizon, the crew gathered to watch the vote that would determine humanity's fate. The Council had been in session for days, debating whether to accept humanity based on their solution to the paradox. Thane's faction argued that humanity's proposal was naive and dangerous. The current system worked. It had maintained peace for thousands of years. Why risk everything for idealistic dreams that had already failed once? But Talus and her allies argued back. They showed the other species what the archive had revealed. Many of them had never known the true history of the Concordate. They had been told the same lies everyone else believed. Seeing the truth changed them. The vote was called. It was closer than anyone expected. When the results appeared, the chamber fell silent. Humanity would be accepted into the Concordate. But more than that, a reformation process would begin. It would take centuries, but the Concordate would slowly transform back toward its original vision. Not everyone was happy. Thane and the Vroth Collective walked out of the chamber in fury. As they left, Thane turned back to deliver one final warning. You have unleashed something you cannot control. Change is coming, but so is chaos. We will see if your idealism survives what comes next. The Vroth Collective did not wait long to make their move. 3 weeks after humanity's acceptance into the Concordate, their fleet appeared at the edge of Sol system. 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They did not come to talk. On Earth, Admiral Sung-ho watched the enemy fleet approach and felt a cold certainty settle in his bones. This was it. Everything humanity had worked for, all their progress, all their dreams of joining the galactic community, it would end here in fire and blood. Their powering weapons, his tactical officer reported. Multiple targeting locks on Earth, Mars, and the lunar colonies. Defensive positions, Sung-Ho ordered, though he knew it would not matter. Earth's fleet was strong by human standards, but against concordant military technology, they were children with sticks facing an army with guns. Then something impossible happened. Space tore open beside the Vroth fleet and new ships emerged. Dozens of them, representing different species from across the concordate. They positioned themselves between the Vroth and Earth. A communication channel opened. It was Talus, her light burning bright again. "Counselor Thane, you overstep your authority. Humanity has been accepted into the concordate by legal vote. An attack on them is an attack on the concordate itself." Thane's voice came back cold and certain. The vote was corrupted by sentiment and naivety. "Humanity is a virus that will destroy everything we have built. I act to preserve the concordate even if I must break its laws to do so." "Then you are no longer part of the concordate," Talus replied. "You are a rogue element. Stand down, or face the consequences." For a long moment, the two fleets faced each other across the darkness. Weapons were armed on both sides. One wrong move and a war would begin that could tear the galaxy apart. On the horizon, still docked at the testing grounds, Daehyun watched the standoff with his heart in his throat. This was his fault. His crew had pushed too hard, moved too fast, changed too much. Now people were going to die because of it. "No," Director Yoonji said beside him. She had been watching the same screens. "This was always going to happen. Thane's faction has been waiting for an excuse to seize power. If it wasn't us, it would have been something else. At least now they're exposed. Everyone can see what they really are." A new voice cut into the communication channel. It was Ambassador Ray, one of the Vroth diplomats who had been at the trials. "Counselor Thane, I speak for 70% of the Vroth military command. We will not follow you into this madness. Attacking a newly accepted species is not preservation, it is murder. I am relieving you of command under Military Protocol 12. The Vroth fleet began to split. Most of the ships powered down their weapons and moved away from Thane's position. Only a small core of true believers remained with him, perhaps 20 ships. Thane's voice, when it came back, was filled with bitter fury. "You are all fools. You embrace chaos and call it progress. You welcome destruction and call it change. When humanity's influence tears the concordate apart, remember that I tried to stop it." His remaining ships jumped away, disappearing into deep space. The crisis was over. But everyone knew it was only the beginning. Director Yoonji was invited to address the full Concordate Council. It would be the first time a human had spoken to the assembled species as an equal member, rather than a supplicant. She stood in that chamber that existed in multiple dimensions, surrounded by beings who represented civilizations older than human written history. She did not try to appear confident or powerful. She spoke simply and honestly. "We know you're afraid of us," she began. "Counselor Thane was right about one thing. Humanity will change the concordate. We can't help it. It's what we do. We question things. We push boundaries. We refuse to accept that this is how it's always been done is a good enough reason to keep doing it that way. But change is not destruction. Change is growth. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's risky. Yes, some things that you value will be challenged. But staying the same is not safety. It's stagnation. And stagnation eventually leads to collapse. We're not asking you to trust us because we're perfect. We're asking you to trust us because we're honest about being imperfect. We make mistakes, we fail. We argue with each other. We struggle with the same questions you do. But we keep trying to be better. And we think that's what the concordate needs. Not species who have everything figured out, but species who are still figuring it out and willing to do it together." She paused, looking around at faces that were alien but somehow familiar, in their expressions of doubt and hope. The original founders of the concordate believed in something beautiful. They believed that different species could work together as equals. That diversity made everyone stronger. That trust was possible even across vast differences. Somewhere along the way you forgot that. You chose control over cooperation, safety over freedom. We're here to remind you that the dream was real, and it still can be, if you're brave enough to believe in it again. The chamber was silent when she finished. Then one by one, species began to signal their support. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough. Enough to matter. The reformation of the concordate began officially 3 months later. It would be slow. So slow that no one alive would see it completed. But the process had started. New protocols for genuine democratic decision-making, new standards for transparency and accountability, new protections for species sovereignty, new frameworks for cooperation that didn't require surrendering independence. Humanity was at the center of it all, not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to do the hard work of making it happen. And other species, especially the younger ones who had been quietly suffering under the old system, joined them. On Earth, Daehyun stood in a park in Seoul, looking up at stars that were no longer forbidden. The quarantine barrier was gone. Human ships could now travel freely across the galaxy. Some would go as explorers, some as traders, some as students, learning from species who had thousands of years of knowledge to share, and some would go as teachers, showing others that there was always another way to solve a problem if you were willing to look for it. Minji found him there, as he somehow knew she would. She stood beside him in comfortable silence for a moment before speaking. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. "Thane is still out there somewhere. The Vroth Collective is fractured. Some species are already talking about leaving the Concordat rather than accepting changes. We might have started a civil war." "We might have," Daehyun agreed. "But the alternative was worse. We could have joined the Concordat as it was and become part of the problem. We could have gone home and stayed in our cage. Either way, we would have been giving up on something important. On what? On the possibility that things can be better. That's really what this was all about. Not proving we're ready for the galaxy, but proving that the galaxy can be more than what it is." A shuttle passed overhead, heading up to orbit. Inside were humans and aliens working together on a joint research project. A year ago, that would have been impossible. Now it was becoming normal. "Fellow sent me a message yesterday," Minji said. "He said something I've been thinking about. He said that the Concordat has been stable for 10,000 years, but stable isn't the same as healthy. Sometimes you need disruption to grow. He thinks humanity might be the disruption the galaxy needed. Or we might be the disruption that tears everything apart," Daehyun said. "Time will tell. Are you scared?" "Terrified," he admitted, but also excited. For the first time in human history, we're not alone. We have partners out there. Some of them don't trust us yet. Some of them actively hate us. But they're there. And slowly, we're all learning to work together. That's worth the risk." Ji-young joined them, bringing news from the latest council session. Ambassador Ray had been elected as the new representative for the Vroth, replacing Thane's faction. Ray's first act was to propose a joint human-Vroth cultural exchange program. It was a small thing, but it was a start. "The council wants to know if we'll help write the new charter," Ji-young said. "The reformation document that will guide the next 1,000 years of the Concordat. They want human input on every aspect. That's a lot of responsibility," Daehyun said. "Yes," Ji-young agreed. "But when have we ever backed down from responsibility?" They stood there together, three humans who had changed the galaxy simply by refusing to accept that change was impossible. Above them, stars glittered in the night sky. Those stars represented species and worlds beyond counting. Some would become friends. Some would remain strangers. Some might even become enemies. But they were no longer separated by invisible walls. The quarantine was over. Humanity had proven themselves, not by meeting the galaxy's expectations, but by showing the galaxy that expectations could be challenged. Daehyun thought about what they had accomplished. They had passed trials that were meant to break them. They had revealed truths that had been hidden for thousands of years. They had started a reformation that would reshape galactic civilization, and they had done it all by refusing to follow the script. The galaxy had thought humanity wasn't ready. Maybe they were right. Maybe humanity would never be truly ready. But they had proven something more important. They had proven that being ready wasn't the point. The point was being willing to try.